We all get tons of advice about money and success throughout our lives, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. From parents, teachers, everywhere.
Yeah, and it's usually well-meaning, get a good education, find a stable job, save for retirement, that kind of thing.
The standard playbook.
Right. But what if some of that classic guidance isn't just a little old-fashioned, but maybe it's actually steering us away from real financial freedom?
It's a challenging thought, isn't it? And it's exactly the territory our source material for this deep dive explores. We're looking at key ideas from Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
And this dive is all based on your sources, the material you shared with us. So we're here to help you really dig into it. Right from the start, the book sets up this, fascinating contrast. The author grew up with two major influences. His actual father, highly educated, who he calls Poor Dad,
Right.
and his best friend's father, a successful entrepreneur, who he calls Rich Dad.
And these two men have fundamentally opposite views on how to make, manage, and even just think about money.
Yeah, you put the author in this position where he basically had to choose who to listen to. It's quite a dilemma.
It really is. Who do you follow when you have these two strong but conflicting voices?
Totally. So our mission today is to jump into that conflict, unpack the core concepts Rich Dad supposedly taught, and sort of pull out the most important insights from this material so you can see what these ideas are really all about.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the foundation is built on these two figures. Tell us about Poor Dad.
Right. So Poor Dad represents the traditional path. Highly educated, valued job security above almost everything else. His mantra was essentially go to school, get good grades, find a safe, secure job with good benefits.
The picture of working for money, basically. He climbed the ladder, earned a high salary.
Yeah, government employee, I think.
Right. But the source says that despite his income and education, he struggled financially later in life. His focus was really on that steady paycheck, that security blanket.
Exactly. Now, Rich Dad, on the other hand, less formal schooling, but achieved significant financial success. His whole philosophy was centered on learning how money itself works.
Oh, okay.
So you could make money work for you rather than, spending your whole life working hard just to earn it.
So you've got these two very different blueprints for life laid out side by side. It really forces you, the reader, to look at your own assumptions about money and success.
Yeah, and question which path you've maybe unconsciously been following, or like you said, which path you even knew existed.
Right.
And this contrast immediately leads into one of the central problems the source highlights, what it calls the rat race.
Ah, the rat race. I remember that image from the book. People running on a hamster wheel.
Exactly. It's that visual.
Yeah.
And the source describes the mechanics of the trap as a cycle.
Okay, how does that cycle work?
Well, you work hard, you maybe get a raise, you earn more money. But as your income goes up, so do your expenses, and crucially, your liabilities.
Liabilities like what?
Yeah.
A bigger mortgage?
Right.
Car payments?
Yes, precisely. Bigger house, nicer car, more credit card debt maybe. And the source points out that taxes also take a larger bite as your income increases.
So you're earning more, but more money is just flowing straight out of your pocket. It cancels out the raise, in a way.
Exactly, or worse. And this leaves people stressed, totally dependent on their next paycheck just to cover everything, even if they have what looks like a high income on paper.
They're running faster and faster on that wheel, but not actually getting anywhere financially.
That's the picture painted. And the reason so many seemingly successful, educated people get caught in this, according to the source, is a fundamental gap in our education.
What gap is that?
The traditional system prepares you brilliantly to be a good employee, how to work for money. But it largely fails, the source argues, at teaching you how to have money work for you.
So professional skills, yes. Financial skills, not so much.
Very little, if any. And there's that anecdote in the book about the adults playing the cash flow game.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Doctors, lawyers.
Right, people you'd think are financially savvy. But when they were faced with a simple financial statement in the game, an income statement, a balance sheet, they struggled. They couldn't really grasp the connection.
They didn't understand how the numbers told a story about cash flow, about where the money was actually going.
Exactly. It just highlights that being smart or successful in your profession isn't the same thing as being financially literate. There's a difference.
Which brings us to what the source calls the number one rule for building wealth.
Yes. Absolutely fundamental, according to Rich Dad. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability.
Okay, this sounds simple, right? Assets, liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
We hear these words. But the book makes a really specific distinction here. It's not the typical accounting definition, is it?
No, not exactly. It's based simply on cash flow. Rich Dad taught the boys this rule in the most straightforward terms possible.
Sure.
An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket, period.
Puts money in. Okay.
And a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket.
Takes money out. So it's all about which way the cash is flowing, right then and there.
That's it. And the source claims this is where even highly educated people often get confused. They might think their house is their biggest asset because its value might go up over time.
Yeah, that's common thinking.
But if that house, with its mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, upkeep, if it's constantly taking money out of your pocket month after month,
then according to this definition, it's functioning as a liability.
Precisely. It's about the current cash flow impact. And the book visually describes the different patterns this creates.
Okay, let's break those down. What about the rich pattern?
For the rich, as described in the source, money flows from their assets, businesses, real estate, stocks, bonds, creating income. This income easily covers their expenses.
And the leftover cash.
The surplus is used to buy more assets, so their asset column grows, which then increases their income further, allowing them to buy even more assets. It's a positive feedback loop. The money works for them.
Got it. Okay, what about the middle class pattern?
For the middle class, the primary source of income is wages from a job. That paycheck comes in.
And goes right back out again.
Pretty much. It flows out to cover expenses and significantly to service liabilities, the mortgage, the car loans, the credit cards. Those liabilities are constantly taking money out.
So their income is basically trapped, flowing away from them. They're dependent on that next paycheck.
That's the depiction. And for the poor,
Uh-huh.
they often just have expenses that might even exceed their limited income, leading to debt. There's typically no money flowing into any kind of asset column at all.
Wow. So understanding that cash flow pattern, which direction your money is really moving, that's presented as the key to breaking out of the rat race.
It is. And the source's core advice on how to do that revolves around this idea of minding your own business.
Okay, minding your own business.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean quitting your job tomorrow and launching a startup, does it?
Not necessarily, no. The source actually advises keeping your day job initially. That's your profession. It generates the income you need. But your real business, your primary focus, should be using that income to build your asset column. That's your business.
Ah, okay. Like that famous example from the book about Ray Kroc and McDonald's.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration. Ray Kroc's profession, what he did day to day, was selling hamburger franchises.
Right.
But his business, his real long-term wealth generator, was real estate. He understood that the land the franchises were built on, the location, that was a true asset, not just the burgers.
That's a massive shift in perspective. It's less about how much you earn from your job and more about what you do with that money, how you use it to acquire things that then generate more money for you.
Exactly. You're building something that works when you're not working. The source lists examples of what Rich Dad considered real assets, businesses that don't require your active presence.
Okay.
Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, income-generating real estate like rental properties, notes you hold, royalties from intellectual property. Basically, anything that puts money in your pocket or reliably appreciates in value and has a ready market.
And this is contrasted again with, say, the typical middle-class focus on buying things like big houses, new cars, boats, fancy gadgets.
Right, which are presented in the book primarily as liabilities because they consistently drain cash flow, even if people think they're assets because they cost a lot or hold some resale value.
Got it. So the concept is clear. Focus on assets, understand cash flow. But the source is also really clear that just understanding this stuff isn't enough, right?
Not at all. There are significant emotional and psychological obstacles that stop people, even smart people, from actually doing it, from building their asset columns. The book details 5 main ones.
Okay, 5 big hurdles. What's the first one?
Fear.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Specifically, the fear of losing money.
Which everyone feels, presumably.
Oh, yeah. The source says everyone, rich or poor, experiences that fear. But the key difference is how you handle losing money.
Wait, rich people lose money too. I thought they had it all figured out.
Absolutely, they lose money. Often many times, according to the source.
Okay.
But the argument is that losing inspires winners while it defeats losers.
How so?
It's about whether you let that fear make you play not to lose,
Yeah.
sticking only to super safe, low return investments, being too cautious, or if you play to win, understanding that failure and setbacks are often part of the learning process.
Like learning from mistakes instead of being paralyzed by them.
Exactly. The source uses the Remember the Alamo story, turning a military defeat into a rallying cry, into motivation. Playing it too safe financially, the book suggests, might mean you never actually get out of the rat race at all.
Okay, so overcoming fear, or at least managing it. What's obstacle number 2?
Cynicism. The chicken littles the book talks about. The people who are constantly predicting doom and gloom.
This guy is always falling.
Right. They hear negative headlines or rumors and just dismiss opportunities out of hand without any real analysis.
Like, oh, the stock market's going to crash, or real estate is too risky, or you can't make money doing that anymore.
Precisely those kinds of things. The source says cynicism blinds you, it closes your mind, whereas analysis, actually looking at the numbers and the opportunity, opens your eyes.
Okay.
There's an anecdote about a friend who saw oil prices rising but was too cynical or afraid to invest, or people saying things like, oh, I don't want to fix toilets, as an excuse to completely avoid looking into real estate investing.
Yeah, finding reasons not to do something.
Exactly. The source says doubt and cynicism are incredibly expensive because they keep people stuck in low-yield situations like savings accounts, while potentially profitable opportunities pass them by.
Doubt is expensive. I like that. Okay, obstacle number 3.
Laziness. But interestingly, not necessarily physical laziness, like sitting on the couch all day.
Oh, what kind then?
It's more about being too busy or thinking you're too busy to actually deal with your finances, or crucially, to take the time to learn something new about money.
Using busyness as a shield. Like, I'm too swamped with work and life to possibly learn about investing or look at my budget.
Exactly that. It's a form of avoidance, and the cure suggested in the book is, maybe controversially, a little greed.
Greed. That sounds negative.
Well, the source frames it more as the desire for something better. A better life, more freedom, nicer things. Having that positive desire that what's in it for me can motivate you to overcome inertia and do the work.
So harnessing desire to push past the comfort zone of just being busy.
Right, that's the idea. Okay, 4th obstacle. Bad habits.
Okay, what kind of bad financial habits?
The most crucial one, according to Rich Dad's philosophy, is the habit of not paying yourself first. Most people earn money, pay all their bills and creditors, and then see if anything is left over to save or invest.
Which is often not much.
Or nothing. Rich Dad taught the opposite. Pay yourself first, meaning you allocate money to your asset column for investments before you pay your bills.
Whoa, okay. But what if you don't have enough to cover the bills after you've paid yourself? That sounds stressful.
It is stressful, and that's kind of the point, according to the source. The book uses an analogy of a 96-pound weakling getting sand kicked in his face. If you always pay others first, you remain financially weak. But if you pay yourself first, even when cash is tight, that pressure, the creditors calling, the bills piling up, forces you to get creative and find new ways to generate income, ideally from your growing assets, to cover those expenses.
So you use the pressure as motivation to build more income streams rather than just, say, dipping into savings to cover the shortfall.
Exactly. The source strongly warns against the habit of raiding your savings or investments to pay bills. Savings are meant for creating more money, not just consumption. Paying yourself first builds financial discipline and strength, fueled by that pressure.
Interesting. Okay, and the 5th and then final obstacle.
Arrogance, which the source defines quite bluntly as ego plus ignorance.
Ego plus ignorance. Ouch.
Yeah. It's basically thinking that what you don't know isn't important. Or worse, pretending you know things about money or investing when you actually don't, maybe because you're successful or highly educated in another field.
Like, I'm a doctor, I don't need to learn about real estate syndication.
Something like that. Or refusing to learn a critical skill because you think it's beneath you. True intelligence in this financial context is presented as recognizing your own ignorance in certain areas and actively seeking out experts or reliable information to fill those gaps.
Humility, basically.
Yeah.
Being willing to learn.
Yes. There's an anecdote about a highly educated newspaper writer who was a great writer but refused to learn sales and marketing skills. She thought selling was beneath her talent. But that refusal, that arrogance, severely limited her income and success, according to the story.
Because she couldn't effectively sell her work or herself.
Right. It shows how arrogance can be incredibly costly financially.
Okay, so we've grasped the core concepts, assets versus liabilities, cash flow, minding your own business. We know the 5 big obstacles: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. Now, how does the source suggest actually taking action, getting started?
Well, first, it circles back to motivation. You need strong, compelling personal reasons, powerful wants. Why do you specifically want to be rich or financially independent?
Having that why clear in your mind.
Exactly, because those reasons are your fuel. They're what will push you through the inevitable setbacks, the fear, the cynicism from others, the urge to be lazy. Without strong reasons, it's too easy to quit.
Makes sense. Okay, motivation is locked in. Then what's the next practical step?
Invest in your financial education continuously. The book hammers this home. Your mind is your single greatest asset.
So reading books like this one.
Yes, reading books, attending seminars, taking courses. The source mentions things like learning about real estate foreclosure specifically. Find ways to actively increase your financial IQ.
Because the world changes fast.
Incredibly fast. The source argues that in today's world, it's not just what you know, but how quickly you learn new things that's priceless. Financial knowledge isn't static.
So learning about money and investing needs to be an ongoing process, not just a one-off thing.
Definitely. And alongside formal learning, pay close attention to the power of association. Who you spend time with matters.
Choose your friends wisely.
In a financial context, yes. Try to learn from people who actually talk about money, investing, and business in a constructive way. The source notes that friends who are struggling financially often avoid the topic or only bring it up when they need a loan or a job.
Being around people who think differently and act differently with money can reg off on you.
That's the idea. Surround yourself with people you can learn from.
Okay. Any other practical tips from the source for getting started?
Yeah, quite a few actually. One is to master one financial formula or strategy first. Learn it well, apply it. Then, once you've got that down, learn a new one. Keep expanding your toolkit, but don't try to do everything at once.
Focus, then expand.
Right. And reiterate that crucial habit. Pay yourself first. Every single month. Use the pressure of upcoming bills as motivation to find or create investment income. Avoid dipping into savings or racking up bad consumer debt to cover shortfalls.
Discipline again.
Huge emphasis on discipline. Another tip, hire people smarter than you in specific areas.
Like accountants or brokers.
Exactly. Good brokers, skilled property managers, knowledgeable accountants, sharp lawyers. You don't need to be the expert in everything. Pay good people well for their specialized knowledge and time. It frees you up to focus on finding deals and building the bigger picture.
Leverage other people's expertise.
Precisely. The source also mentions this interesting concept of being an Indian giver with your investments.
Okay. What does that mean in this context?
It means aiming to get your initial investment capital back out of an asset relatively quickly once it starts performing and generating cash flow or appreciation.
Recouping your principal.
Yes. So then the asset itself and the income it continues to generate is essentially free. You have no money at risk anymore in that particular deal. It's a way to reduce risk and accelerate growth.
Clever. Keep the upside, remove the downside risk.
That's the goal. Also, have heroes. Find successful investors or entrepreneurs you admire. Study what they did, how they think. Then try to emulate their strategies.
Learn from the best.
And teach others. The source suggests that when you teach something you're learning, like these financial concepts, it forces you to understand it better yourself. Sharing reinforces your own knowledge.
Teaching is learning. Got it.
Make lots of offers, especially in areas like real estate or acquiring businesses. The book argues you often don't know what a truly good price is until you start putting offers out there. Don't be afraid to offer low or build escape clauses into your offers.
It's a numbers game sometimes.
It can be. The more offers you make, the better your chance of finding someone who needs to sell or finding an overlooked opportunity. You have to be actively looking, driving for deals, not just waiting for them to fall in your lap.
Proactive searching.
Yes. And related to that, don't try to perfectly time the market. It's famously difficult, if not impossible. Instead, the source suggests focusing on long-term trends and positioning yourself for the next wave. Buy good assets when they're unpopular or overlooked, and then be patient.
Buy when there's metaphorical blood in the streets, even if it's your own.
Well, maybe not quite that dramatic, but yes. Buy when others are fearful or pessimistic, assuming your analysis shows underlying value. Think like a contrarian.
Okay.
Also, understand the power of information. Not illegal insider trading, obviously, but cultivating networks and knowledge sources that give you timely, relevant information, legal insider knowledge that helps you spot opportunities before the crowd does.
Being connected and informed.
Right. And challenge conventional consumer behavior.
Yeah.
When the stock market crashes or real estate dips, what do most people do?
Panic. Sell low. Run away.
Exactly. The source says that's when financially intelligent people see a sale. They see an opportunity to buy valuable assets at a discount. It's the opposite reaction.
Thinking like an investor, not just a consumer.
That's a good way to put it. And finally, think big. Don't just look at buying one share of stock or one small rental property if you can. Look at the whole pie, the entire apartment building, the whole business, and figure out creative ways you might be able to acquire it, maybe with partners or financing.
Don't limit your thinking based on your current resources alone.
Right. Stretch your financial mind. There was that great example in the book illustrating this, the friend who gave his son some money, not to just buy a car.
Oh, yeah, but to invest it, right?
Yeah.
To buy stocks first.
Exactly. He used the son's desire for the car as motivation. The deal was the son could use the profits from his stock investments to buy the car.
So the kid had to learn about the stock market, read the financial news.
He had to invest in his financial education. And he had to focus on building an asset, the stocks, rather than just immediately acquiring a liability, the car. It brilliantly ties together motivation, education, and the asset-building mindset.
That really does crystallize the whole philosophy, doesn't it? It's not just about having money. It's about developing the mindset, the knowledge, the skills, the discipline, the financial intelligence.
And the source emphasizes that financial intelligence isn't just one thing. It's a synergy of different skills. Accounting, understanding the numbers, investing strategies for making money grow, marketing, being able to buy and sell, and law understanding, taxes, contracts, corporate structures.
It's a combination. And the author seems genuinely concerned that the lack of this kind of financial education of the general population is a big problem.
Yeah, the source suggests it's a major factor contributing to the widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. If only one group understands how money really works,
Then they have a massive advantage.
that's the implication. Learning this framework, developing your financial intelligence, is presented as the path to becoming the master of money instead of remaining its slave.
Escaping that cycle where just working harder doesn't cut it because taxes, debt, and lifestyle creep just eat up any extra income.
Exactly. Working harder within a flawed system or a system you don't understand isn't the solution presented here. You need to understand the rules of the game money plays by.
Wow. Well, this deep dive, based on your source material, has definitely taken us on a powerful journey. We've challenged a lot of that conventional wisdom about money.
We really have.
We've explored that core conflict between the rich dad and poor dad approaches. We've nailed down those cash flow definitions of assets and liabilities.
Identified those big internal obstacles: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, arrogance.
Right, and outlined a whole set of practical, actionable steps presented in the source for how someone might actually start building that asset column and aiming for financial freedom.
It's definitely a lot to digest, but having these distinctions and strategies laid out from the source provides, I think, a really fantastic starting point for anyone wanting to deepen their own financial learning journey.
Absolutely. Gaining this kind of financial literacy, this financial intelligence, it really feels like an investment in yourself that could potentially pay dividends far beyond just earning that next paycheck. It seems to be about creating options, control, and genuine opportunity.
So maybe the final thought for you to ponder, building on all this, considering the cash flow patterns and habits we've discussed today from the source, where is your own daily financial activity really taking you right now? And perhaps more importantly, what might you be willing to learn, or what habits might you be willing to change to potentially shift that direction?